Hey, hi, this is Sandeep, and in this tutorial I'll be explaining you about date effective entity objects and view objects. So first of all, let's go through the business scenario. Suppose there is a business scenario in which you want to record, and there are actually business scenarios at the enterprise level wherein you want to record or you want to have the track of records date by date. For example, it's a simple example that I have taken here, that for each and every employee you want to track down the salaries for in different span of periods. Okay, so here as you can see, from 2000, from 1st January 2000 to the 2012, this employee has this salary, but in the next year, from the very next year up to the end of 2014, this employee has this salary. Okay, and there may be many other records based on this for the same employee, and there may be other records also of the some other employee, right? So this is a simple business scenario in which I am tracking down, or I am recording basically, that what the salary of an employee is between different span of periods, right? So for this I went ahead and created a table in database. So here is my table. It creates I am actually identifying each and every employee with the help of email ID, and here is the salary, here is the from date, here is the to date. And if you go here, I have defined the primary keys also, and primary keys are basically employee email, from date and to date. These three actually will constitute as the primary key. So as you can see here, these three basically constitute primary key for this table. Okay, so this is how the table looks like at the DB level. Now let's go ahead and create entity objects and view objects. So here I will first create an entity object. You have to select ADC entity object, and connection is fine. So here, just browse, query. These are all steps I've already taken in previous tutorials. That's why I'm just rapidly walking through them. Employee sell by date. This is our table, and I want to name it as like this. Attributes, fine. Attribute settings. Fine. Just go ahead with all these settings and create it. So now you have your entity object. So there are basically a couple of settings that you need to configure here. I'll just go through over those settings. For example, here, if you open the entity object, first of all, in the general tab you should have effective date type. So you should actually select here effective dated. Okay, and after that, if you go to the attribute tab, you want to make this one as the start date and this one as the end date. So just double click it, go inside it, it will give you an option of effective date. Here if you check it and just make sure that the point is, the radio button is on the start, just apply. Okay, and in the similar way you have to go inside to date and make it effective date as end date. So basically by doing this, we are telling the ADF that this will be our start date and this will be our end date. See, when we tell the ADF, it's almost very much obvious that the DB is having this from date and to date, but at the same time we are letting the ADF also know that what is the start date and what is the end date, because when ADF comes to know about this, it actually provides you some handy methods, some more APIs built in, that comes built in with ADF, with which you can take the advantage and create new records and create some good records in less amount of effort. Okay, so I'll be explaining that in a little while. So the setting that I have just configured, this is just to let the ADF know that this is the start date and this is the end date. So these settings are fine, you can just save. Now we want to create view object on this, so you can directly right click on it. There is new default view object, and I want to name it as EMP sell by dates view. It will quickly create it. So here also you just have to make sure these settings, again you have to go to the general, effective date is true, just make sure this is true. If it is not, you have to change it. Go to the attributes, here from date, just check this, it is already active date, and start, it has actually picked it from the entity object, so that's why it is disabled here. So here also just make sure it is end. Okay, that's fine. So now we are good with entity object and view objects. Okay, so we have created our entity objects and view objects. Now right now there is no data inside this. Okay, so what I will do, I will create some functions through which I will try to insert the data, I will try to create the data, and I will try to delete the data, I will try to update the data. Okay, so for that what I will do, actually we have not created yet application module, so I'll just create the application module also. New application module, this is fine for me, and I want to expose this. Okay, so we have our application module here, and the data module contains our view object. Okay, so now what we'll do, we will go ahead with the Java class of this application module. Basically we will create the Java class of this application module, and then we will write the methods inside the Java class. So I will just create generate application module class. Okay, it has generated this. Go inside this. So here is your implementation class that has been generated. Here I have placed a create method. Okay, so here as you can see, I accept these as the argument, employee email, salary, and from date and to date. Okay, and here I am converting the salary to the number, and here is the view object. This is the view object that I'm capturing in VO, and we just have to create a new row. So we'll say row small row is equal to view.create row, and then we can directly go ahead and set the attributes over it. So it's pretty much same as creating any other entity object, any other record. So set attribute and then insert row, and this is the comment. Okay, so we will actually expose this, though we have created this method over here, but now we want to expose this method so that the end user can use it. For exposing, we will go over here, we will click the client interface, and we will shuttle it across from available to selected. So now this appears under the app module. This means this has been exposed. Now we can test our method. We will just run it. Here is the output. Just select app module, and in the drop down your method will be present. Here it will be asking you about the attributes, the various arguments that we designed over there. Okay, let's say salary is 21,000, and we have to now give a span of period. So let's say that from 2000 0101, okay, and let's say up to the end of 2014, execute. Okay, it's a success. Now you can go in the DP and see if the row got inserted or not. Just refresh it, and here our data has been inserted. That means our create method is working fine. So now that we have inserted this data, okay, over here, now ADA provides, as I already told you, that ADA provides some functionalities with which you can update this data based on how you want to do it. For example, now this employee is carrying this salary from this span of time. Now suppose HR comes and says that let's say up to this salary was effective only till 2012, okay, and it was not active after that. From 2012 to 31 December, from 2012 to this date, the salary was 40,000. Okay, so basically we are splitting this single row into two row in different span of times. Okay, so for that actually we have got two we have got basically two methods basically, not the method what I'm calling basically, there are two ways I should say to update or record. There are many ways, but the important ways are these two. Okay, so as I said that if you want to split this record into two, you will use this way. Okay, update correction, sorry, update mode. Okay, and if you want to do correction over here, suppose the HR of the company says that this record is not accurate and actually the salary was 22,000 in this span of time. So in that situation you would want to update with this mode. Okay, with this way. So let's go ahead with these methods and try to do some operations with this. Actually, before I go ahead and explain you something more, I would like to draw your attention towards this fact. See, basically if you look at the query of this view, right, it's a simple select query, but actually it's not that simple. This is a date effective view object which is based on the date effective entity object, right? If you go in the edit, you will find, and if you go inside, sorry, if you go over here and if you say explain path, okay, so here's the actual query. It says select these all things from this table, and where this bind variable is between the from date and end date. So basically what this query is doing, this query will take this bind variable input from you, from the user, and then it will try to search all those records in which this date lies between the from and the to date. So basically it is providing you a search functionality. The area provides you with the search functionality with which you can give just any effective date, and it will give you all records which will have that date in between the from and the to date, right? So if you want to test it, you can simply run it from here. So if you double click on it, it will ask you this bind variable's value. Okay, so you have to provide the value over here, and then only it will run. So our thing is from 2000. The salary, this record is for a span from 2000 to 2014. So let's give something between them. Let's give 2012 date. Okay, so this will lie in this record, and see, it fetched this record because whatever date I entered, okay, ADF checked with that query which I showed you that this date should lie, this date should lie between the from and the to date. So it found that in this record this date is lying between these dates, so pull this record. Okay, so that's how actually it does. So it provides you a built-in search functionality over here. And after that I would like to explain you. I'll go to the app module. So here I have got one method, update row by this way. Okay, this is one of the way which I discussed. Okay, so basically what this will do, this will try to reinsert the data. It will try to split the same row into two, and it will try to divide this span of time. For example, now let's say that HR comes and says that from 2000 to 2005, to the end of the 2005, the salary was this, but after 2005, effective from 2005 basically, or effective from 2006, let's say effective from 1st January 2006, the salary was double. Okay, so in that case you would want to end this one at the date of 2005 ending, that is 2005 December 31st, and you would want to start a new record starting with 2006 January 1st, and it will be running to a span of 31st December 2014, right? So basically we are splitting this record into two, and we are dividing the span of times. So for that we will use, for this split we will use this way. Okay, so how we gonna do it? We will just take the input from the user, that which employer and what salary you want to update, and the effective date basically. So now what it will do, I will just grab the view object from here, and now I am setting this property. I am using this method to set property, and I am providing this effective date whatever user entered here. So basically what here I am doing is, we need to remember one thing, that in this view object, as I showed you this query right in the explain plan, this query is going to be the default query of this view object. So anytime you execute this query is going to execute, and this bind variable has to be set by the user or the program. So in the earlier case, when I explained you with the help of the model tester, I entered the value for this bind variable from the model tester, right? But when you are doing it from the program, you need to supply this value. Okay, so how this value can be supplied? This value can be supplied with the help of this method. You can simply set property, and this is the property name, and here you can provide the effective date. So what it will do basically, that when it will execute this view object, it will take this effective date, and then it will try to search in the table that which records are those records in which this effective date falls between the from date and the to date. So basically it will take this effective date and it will supply it to that bind variable which I just now showed you. Okay, so when it supplies over there, the query becomes, you can imagine how the query becomes, this is the same value, and this value is supplied to that bind variable. Okay, so I supplied this to the bind variable, so the query would be like this will be the query as I showed you, and here at the place of bind variable you supplied your date from the user, effective date. Okay, so here, so you just need to remember that this method is used to set the effective date basically. Okay, effective date so that the view objects query will get the bind variables value from it. Now I say set where clause employee email as whatever the user supplied from here. Okay, so I'm setting the where clause. So apart from all the where condition that I just now showed you, it will set the where clause to the given emp email. Okay, and after that it will execute the query, right? So when it executes the query, I know that probably I'll get only one record. For now, in this example, in this particular example, I know that I'll get only one record, so I've just taken simply and blindly next. Okay, depending on the conditions, you can just use another APIs in order to iterate through the rows. So after this after this I say row dot set effective date mode. So here is the way that I'm setting. I told you that I'm gonna use this way, right, to split the record into two. So here is the line in which I am basically setting the way, the method to do the update. Here is this line. So here I am setting this. If I have to set it to another way, I can do it here only. I'll show you just after this. Right now I'm using this way to update because I want to split that record. I want to split the record into two. Okay, so after this, after I have said that I want to do this way, I will simply say row set attribute salary to the new salary. So going through all these steps in one go, what it will say, get this view object, set the property, that is set the bind variable of this view object, and the bind variable value is going to be this, set the email to be this, and then pull the record. Okay, execute query, that is the pull the record. So suppose you gave this as the employee ID and you gave some date between it, so it will execute the VO and it will get this record for sure. After it gets this record, this will be stored in the row. Okay, so after this will be stored in the row, and then you say I want to update with this way. Okay, after that you say set attribute salary as cell. So as you have already mentioned that I'm going to use this way, so what it will do, it won't update, it won't set the salary to the new salary. It will create another record in which it will have the salary from here, whatever you gave, the new salary, and it will rearrange the dates, that is the effective date that you gave, right? That effective date will become the from date of the new record, and the 1 day prior date to the effective date will become the end date, that to date of here. So let's just go ahead and see. Let's suppose I have created this method. I will just expose this method also like this. So I'll say all, I'll point to here, and I'll run it. Here's output. Double click and you can select your method here, and then you can supply the value. Let's say I want to split that record that I showed you. Salary, let's say its salary became almost double, and as you see here the salary is from this date to this date, okay, from almost 2000 to 2014. So let's just split. Let's just say that this salary he started taking from 2006. Okay, so as you say this, okay, as you execute this, it's success, and if you refresh the page, you will find that a new record has been inserted here which says effective date whatever you entered here, right, and up to the end of the time, up to the time where the previous you remember the previous screen, right? Actually there was only one record. There was only this record which was having start date as this and end date as this. It was here, over here. So it splitted that record and it said I want this salary from this effective date, and it picked the end date as the end date of the previous record. So I hope you are understanding. It basically splitted the record which was already existing, okay, and it took the breakpoint as the effective date, right? So one day before this effective date it ended this record, and from the effective date it started this record, and it says that 42,000 is the salary. So this is the method with which you can split the records, and you can provide effective date. You can provide an effective date with which you can split the records and divide the span of period of times here. Now there is one more another method in which let's suppose one HR comes and he says from this span of period this data is basically accurate, this data is not accurate, and the salary was actually 22,000, not 21,000. So you don't want to split this record, right? You just want to update this particular record itself, right? So in that scenario what you will do, you will use this way. Okay, so the way to use this way is I will write a method to do this. Here is the method that I have written. So here also the same code lines have been used which I showed you earlier. I will get the view object, I will set the property, I will set the where clause to the specified email, and then I'll execute it. So when I execute it, what it will do, it will look for this employee ID and it will look for this effective date whatever the user supplied, and it will get the record. Now I will get the row, I will get the row in the next. I will say view.next, I will get this row. Now I know basically that only one row will be returned in this particular scenario, so I'm just blindly taking it to the row. I'm not having any arrays over here. So after that I will say set effective date mode, and I will use this way. So now I will tell ADF by using this way that you don't have to split the record, you have to update the salary in the same record. So when you say set attribute salary sal, then it will take that record and it will update the salary in the same record. So let's just test this. Let's just expose this method first of all. This method is exposed. So and I'll run it. It's basically the same piece of code. If you walk through, it just says get the view object and set this property. Setting this property means that in this view object we had a bind variable, so set that bind variable to have this value, and after that set the where clause to have the email filtered, and after that execute the query. So it will execute the query by filtering email and by looking into the table that which all records have their from and to date spanning such that this date lies between them. After that it will say it will get those records and after that you're grabbing that record by saying row is equal to view or next. Now you have that record handy. Okay, after that you say I want to use this method, so it will tell the ADF that you don't want to split the same record which you have right now, which you are holding right now in the row. You don't want to split that, you want to do the update on the same record. And after that you say set attribute salary, so it will do the update in the same record. So for testing it, let's say HR comes and says we want to update this record. We don't want to split this record, we want to update this record. So for that we can go to the method that we wrote here. We can supply the value and salary. Let's say HR says that this was the correct salary, accurate salary, and effective date. So you can give any date between them basically. Okay, so let's say 2000 02 oops 02 02. Okay, so this date basically will lie between the two. So this date will go inside, and here effective date, you will get the effective date here, and you will set the attribute over here. So I hope now you will understand the flow. So when I execute this, it's a success. And now if you go to the DB, this should be modified to 22,000. If you refresh it, see, so it has been refreshed to 22,000. So this time it did not split this record, it actually updated on the same record, right? So apart from this, you can also create a delete functionality over here. So this is the delete functionality that I have written. So here I'll accept, I just want to say I'll just close these all normal testers. So let's suppose we have a requirement simply to delete this record, okay. So what we will do, we will write a delete row method, and we will say we will accept emp email id and these all whatever steps are necessary for the composite primary key, right? These all three combine together to form our primary key. So we'll accept these from the users, we will get the view object, we will create a key in this fashion. So key is created in this fashion, as you can see, new object, and as you have composite key, so we'll create an array of object and we'll include all these three. So this way you created a key. And after that I am setting the property, this property with the from. Basically this I am doing just to set the attribute in this view object. See, you have to understand that this view object, what was the query, what will be the complete query of this view object, that's all actually I have been explaining up to now. If you have to imagine the complete query, you have to include this one. You have to go over here, explain plan, as I told you this query, right? This is always the query. Apart from that, if you set where clause or if you do a lot of things, it will be appended to this, okay, as long as we explicitly do not remove this bind variable from here. So this bind variable has to be given, some value. So that's all I am doing here. When I say set this property and I supply this from date, I say that set that bind variable for this date, okay. So after that I say execute query. So basically here I am saying set this as the primary key. Obviously it's gonna fetch the record whatever you are going to supply, but as you know that in the complete query that bind variable was also present. So I just gave I just supplied a value to that bind variable, and such a value that actually exists between, that is a true value for this record which will be returned here, okay. So after that I execute the query, and basically up to here you will understand. After that I supplied this from query, so basically the from query will be supplied to that bind variable, and now that from will obviously lie between the from and the to date, right? So it will be a complete true situation. It will be a true situation and it will get the record. So then I'll say execute query, then I get the record. I'll simply get the first record. Here I say I know that in this scenario only one record will come up, so I'm blindly saying first. You can have you could have used another APS in order to make sure that you are getting only first. For simplicity, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just getting this first record over here, and then I'll remove it and then I'll commit it, okay. So let's just test it. For this I'll expose this also. it has been exposed. Save, just run it. Here's the output, and we have to select this time delete row. Let's say that I want to delete this row, so I'll simply put the data over here. From is 2000 01 01, then this 2005 21. Okay, so I have entered this record over here, so it will call our delete row method and it should delete this row. It's a success. Now this row should go off. Now if you refresh, it's gone, right? So this is how we do some create delete operations, and we update the records in the date effective entity objects and view objects. So I hope this explains you well how we can take the advantage of ADF functionalities, whatever is provided to us in case of date effective view objects and entity objects. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you